driver off the deck for Corey Connors.
Here's driver off the deck for Victor Hovland.
So the driver off the deck. I know you would try this, right?
Oh my, what a shot.
Just to be able to hit it off the deck and get that thing down and fly it in running.
You have to put your foot on the gas. You pull out the driver off the deck and you put it on the green all the way up the hill.
Welcome back to another episode of Off the Deck. I am your host, Josh Decker. I'm really excited about today's guest, Mr. Andrew Brewster. Andrew, how are you doing?
Doing good. How about you?
I'm great. I'm great. One of the things that is a joy about this show is the show came into existence largely because of just my golf experiences and people that I've met along the way. But you're a great example of why I've come to really love this show, and that's that I interact with people on a just one-time, one-off random basis. And we're like, hey, yeah, when are you coming on the show? So thanks for taking the time. But yeah, excited to kind of have a first date with you other than that drive to Horse Creek a couple months ago. So I know you're now with Straight Down and a rep for them, but I want to start kind of with how you fell in love with the game of golf, and then we'll work our way towards more present day. But when did you first get introduced to the game, and what did that look like growing up for you?
Sure. So thanks for having me on. I'm, excited to be here. So getting back to golf and kind of my background, I started at a super young age. So I was, walking, and that's basically when I started, I would say. My uncle played collegiately there at Sanford, there in Birmingham. And then I would just go to the driving range, and we'd go to Eagle Point. We'd go to that sandy driving range, no grass, just all sand. And we would sit there, hit balls. One of his roommates at the time was playing competitively and had a little pass. He could swipe it, get unlimited range balls. So I was out there hitting them, at a young age. But as I got older, kind of fell out of that, played anything with a ball. I played football, I played baseball, soccer, basketball, anything with a ball. And I think that's what every kid should do. I think
Totally agree.
go do it all, figure out what you like, and, just go from there. There's no right or wrong what you do. Now, obviously, we're partial to golf because that's what brought us together, and I think brings so many people together. I don't think there's a better avenue to meet people and really build those long-lasting relationships.
Yeah, that's well said. So, and where did you grow? Obviously, you said you played at Eagle Point, which, for the listeners, was a golf course just south of Metro Birmingham, and it is now a full subdivision. That golf course, unfortunately, is no longer with us. But I don't know if I knew this about, did you grow up here in Birmingham?
I did. I grew up kind of Pelham area, and then we moved middle school-ish over to Oak Mountain, Spain Park, that area.
Okay.
And then that's where, I'd say I really fell in love with it. It was more middle school, high school. Middle school, I kind of had to make a choice. It was either, go the baseball route and play high school, probably not college, but, at least golf you can play for your whole life. And, I looked at it as a longevity thing, not just what can I do right now.
Okay. And then, so at what point did you decide that this is something that was going to be a career path for you?
So that's a funny story. I love
funny stories. That's why we're here.
That's the whole thing. So I was working at Shoal. So that's where I started out. I started as a cart kid. I called a dozen times, and finally they gave me an interview. I didn't butcher it enough to where they said, we're not going to have you. It was good enough, I guess. And they probably just needed a body, if we're being honest.
Right.
But ended up getting that job, worked there for a little while, caddied, did that through high school, came back, worked the summer, And one of the old pros who was there when I was in high school was bringing a group from his now club. And I was in there regripping clubs, just kind of doing what a golf pro would do. And, I wasn't in the program, wasn't pursuing it per se. And he said, Brew, you're pretty good at that. You ever thought about a career in golf? And I said, yeah, I've thought about it, but, hadn't really gone anywhere. So ended up, talking to my boss at the time. And he said, all right, I'm going to give you the real life. This is what a golf pro is. It's not flying on private jets and going to play Oakmont, Pebble, Cypress, whatever it looks like, from the outside. It's working holidays, it's being away from your family, being away from kids, long hours. And sure, you're around golf, but, it just depends on where you are if you get to play a lot. And he said, I'm going to give you all the cons. Those were a few, but go make a pro list, see if it outweighs it. And I thought
Okay.
that was a great way to look at it. And, I've done that to people over the years that have come to me and said, hey, I want to get into golf. And I said, I'm going to do what my boss, at the time did to me, and really made me think about everything, not just, hey, it's cool. I like being around the golf course and, I can make a livable wage.
Right, right. So, in of the pros, what was the main pro that stood out to you in comparison to all those cons that then you're like, okay, I'm doing this?
I think it was just being around golf. I couldn't see myself sitting at a desk. I couldn't see myself, doing all these other things that is quote unquote normal. But, I just thought, I love golf. I love being around it. This is the only job I've really ever had. I've, cut lawns growing up to pay for my first car, that sort of thing. But, I've only been around golf. And I think there's a reason for that. And, I pursued it as a career and, ended up getting my Class A, going through the program, on my own at my own pace. And, that's much different from any PGM program. I'm sure you're aware of that, but
Well, so
it's
and I love that you said that, and sorry for interrupting, but
yeah,
because I know my wife's going to listen to this. So explain what the PGM is and the Class A, just for the person that may not be intimately familiar with those different levels of accreditation in the space.
sure. So both are working towards getting your Class A, which is what we call a certified golf professional. So anybody with comma PGA after their name in the golf world is a PGA member. I used to go to movies and I would see comma PGA in the credits. It's like, wait, is that guy a golf pro? It was like, no, I think that's something with movies. But in the golf space, it means you're a golf pro. So there's a couple ways to go about it. You can do it through a PGM school. There's, a handful out there, Mississippi State being one, but they take you through, all the different criteria, all the curriculum as a part of school. And then you get an undergrad degree with that, and then you come out and you have a Class A certification. So you're a PGA pro. You have to go do internships as a part of that. Normally it's a 3, 6, 9 month, and that's how you get real world experience is doing that.
Yeah,
But
and thank you for clarifying, because that's helpful for everybody, just as a bigger picture of what it takes, and kind of to expound on what you said. You can't just show up at a club and start working and then rise through the ranks and all of a sudden be the head pro. Like, there are
right.
letters behind your name you've got to have in order to achieve one of those positions. So I think that's and just an important thing to point out.
No, and it's not easy to get. It's one of those things where, the route I took, it was on my own. I went to Troy, got a degree. That way, the quote unquote normal way. And then after that was kind of after enduring is when, that pro approached me about getting into the business. And I started on my own. You have to do classwork, you have to do, videos, you have to video lessons, you have to go. At the time, it was down to Port St. Lucie for level one. For each of the levels, there's 3 levels. Then you have to take a test at the end. And I ended up doing level one with 120 people. Level two, I went back to Port St. Lucie. There were about 35 or 40 of us.
Whoa. So a third are left?
A third. And then level three, this is the craziest. I ended up doing it at Frisco because that was the new PGA headquarters. We were the first class to go through there with 10 people.
Wow. And did
So
all 10 make it through?
120 all the way to 10. It's pretty crazy how many people fall out of it.
Yeah. And just this is somewhat of a personal question, but what is the cost associated with getting to that level?
It varies. When I went through, it was probably 3,500 ish per level.
Okay.
And they used to include travel down to Port St. Lucie. They would book your flight. Now going out to Frisco, it's, on your own, and you got to figure all that out.
Okay.
Which is, that's good travel experience for people that may not have traveled a lot, but
Right.
it's definitely more involved doing it on your own, and you have to be your own boss. You can't sit there and rely on someone else to say, this is due on Tuesday type thing. So,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. So you've got to put yourself through the curriculum yourself and then be prepared when you go out to Frisco for all the tests and everything. Did everybody that was in that group attend? Did everybody make it through?
everybody did, but you actually go to the level. It's a 5-day seminar. You go through teaching, coaching, the management side and the whole business. And after that, they give you a portfolio. You have to go through, work on that, submit it to the PGA. They review it. Sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 2. Normally, they send it back to you and say, you screwed up this part. You need to figure it out. And then, from there, once you do that and they sign off, then you go test. So you go to some testing center and, you're taking a test next to someone looking for their realtor's license or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. So just a proctored environment.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So you finish up with all that, and then what does career trajectory look like? Because I'm fascinated. I want to hear. I heard a little bit about it on our way from Whole Foods to Horse Creek, which that's a whole other topic we'll get to here in just a minute. But I want to hear did you start to experience more of the cons that boss originally told you about? Like what did that look like? And where were you working in Atlanta? And I would just love to hear about that.
Sure. So I went from Shoal Creek, where I was, ended up, being there for a while, interned for the USGA when the Women's Open was there. I did everything from credentials for vendors to parking lot signage to the variable message boards you would see on 280. And, that was a really cool experience to get to see how a major is put together, even on the
Yeah.
women's side. Then they asked me to go up to Shinnecock. I was up there for about a month. That was really cool. Got to see a men's major, be a small part in that. That was super cool. And then from there, went back, worked at Shoal for 6 months, maybe a year. And then one of the guys at Country Club of Birmingham was looking for an assistant to help run outside staff, teach, just kind of do a little bit of everything. So from there, I went to Birmingham, was there for about 3-ish years. And we played all the time. We had a great staff. It was a young staff. We, were super tight. We would go to Barron's games. That's the one thing about golf I would say is, the people you work with, the people you surround yourself with really do become some of your best friends. And in my case, that couldn't be more true. I think it's that environment where everybody's grinding and everybody's working towards the same goal and everyone's supportive. I mean, going down to the PGA show last week, it's a class reunion. I mean, you get to see everybody, you see people from all over the country that, you might not see throughout the year other than there. And, it's just a cool, tight knit community of people.
Yeah, that's all. And I don't know that there's another industry that is necessarily like that. I could certainly be wrong, and somebody probably light me up in my DMs that I'm an idiot. But like, it feels like you kind of all come together to learn one thing, and then you get dispersed all across the country at whatever club, working wherever. But then, like, the entire world of golf is focused on Orlando for that 1 week, and it seems like it's really cool. I've talked to so many people who were down there at the PGA show, and we're seeing everybody, running into everybody. I know I got texts from people that met the producer of the show, Robbie. I mean, it was, and I hate I couldn't make it, but it looks like it was a blast. And like you said, I think it sounded like a class reunion, which that's really cool. I've never thought about it in that context.
No, it really is. And, we say walking down Main Street, that main corridor of the show, if you don't have time, you can't in between appointments because you will run into 10 different people and they all want to sit there, talk, catch up, which is great. But when you're busy, you can't always do that. So there's other ways around it, but it's definitely, a great week to connect and have fun.
Yeah.
But then
Okay.
also
So,
get a lot of business done. I mean, it was like Robbie said, we were jam packed the entire week.
and so you're with Straight Down now. And how long have you been with Straight Down?
7, 8 months, somewhere in there. I started in June, so I was at Capital City Club for about 3.5, almost 4 years there.
Okay.
And started off as the lead assistant. There's a director of golf that oversees both facilities, a head pro at each facility, and then I was the next guy up. So that pro left, got his head job. Me and another guy ended up getting a head pro position there. And, I was in that role for a couple years and then, it just kind of ran its course and it was time for me to do something new. It was an exciting opportunity that I couldn't turn down.
That's fantastic. I love hearing that. That it was just like, you know what, I've done this, I've enjoyed it, but it's time for something different. I would imagine you very much enjoy just reporting to like one boss now, as opposed to reporting to however many members you had at Capital City. I'm not sure necessarily how that club functions and if it's member run or if the actual staff kind of runs it, but I've heard nightmarish stories of people in your shoes and just having to answer to everyone under the sun about every single thing that could possibly happen in the world of golf at a country club. So, but what was that a good experience at Capital City? Like, miss it or thankful to be kind of out of that country club world?
I definitely miss it. There's days when, sure, I wish I was back there doing it, hanging out with not only the staff, the members. I mean, everyone there is great. And I still stay in touch with everybody there. I mean, it's such a great place, great members. I was on the phone with one of the members from there today, and he was just checking in, seeing what was going on. And, there are those genuine people that really do care. And sure, I miss it, but I think I made the right decision for me. And, we'll see where this goes. I'm 7, 8 months in, and it's definitely different, owning your own business. I'm a independent contractor. So, just figuring out all the tax and, all those things that go with it too.
Okay, so that's interesting you mentioned that because someone that is a mutual friend of ours and a competitor of yours, Ethan Winchester, has been on the show and talked to him a lot about just the timeline that goes into projects and everything. And I understand he is a an employee of Johnny O, and you are an independent representative. So how does that obviously you have to run your own business now. How does that function differently than being an employee directly associated with the organization? Are you able to carry other brands? What does that look like? I guess a day in the life of Andrew Brewster on the road.
Sure. So on the road, like I said, I just got back today. I was down for the PGA show and then, had a few meetings down in Jacksonville after, but it's very different, I would say, being W-2 versus being 1099 independent contractor, just because, it's on your own. You're basically someone that they say, we like you. We would like you to represent the brand in this area, but, there's no strings attached, I guess you could say. It could be, tomorrow they say, hey, we found someone better. See ya. And there's no real contract. I mean, there is like an agreement we came up with, but it's very, very competitive, I could
Okay.
say.
Do you have a
And
quota?
I do have a quota, and that's something that we're still trying to figure out because it is a new territory, and I am growing it in this area. I've opened a lot of doors that didn't have the brand before, and
Hmm.
I like to think that's because of my connections that I built up over a decade, on the other side of the counter. Like
Yeah.
it's being the guy buying from the reps, and you mentioned Ethan, and he's been a great friend of mine for God, I'd say at least 7, 8 years.
Oh,
And
because he was probably calling on you at Capital City, wasn't he?
he was Capital City, Birmingham, and Shoal.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool to see all the reps that I worked with before become colleagues
Yeah.
and really people that I can lean on for help, because sure, we compete, but at the same time, it's, you know, we're all in it together, and we all know, we might, you're not going to get 100% of any shot. That's very, very rare. But everyone wants to see success for the other reps as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. I don't know why I didn't connect the dots about you knowing Ethan from, to use your words, being on the other side of the counter. That's really cool. I've gotten to know him now for, I guess, probably it's been 3 or 4 years now that since I met him, and he had just moved to Birmingham. And I feel like we've kind of taken them under our wing and are showing them the ropes of Birmingham a little bit.
Yeah.
So we met. I'm sitting in bed watching something with my wife a couple months ago, and I get a text from our other mutual friend, Garrett Powell. And he's like, hey, what are you doing on this date? And it was like a random Monday. And I was like, I don't have plans. What's up? And he's like, you want to play golf? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Sign me up.
Right. Whatever it
And
is, man.
yeah, I'm there.
Right.
And I did not have a clue what I had signed up for, but I had signed up to participate in the Big Pony. And I don't want to know the answer, but I'm pretty sure Garrett had texted probably, I'm gonna go at least 20 other people in his phone before he got to me and be like, oh, let me invite Decker.
I don't know if it was 20. There might have been 1 or 2, but I don't think it was.
But I'm thankful that I got that invitation. And so I would love to know, because as soon as we got there, it was like balls in the air. We're playing golf. And it was everybody from any club in Birmingham was pretty much there to play. But I would love to hear the inspiration of Big Pony and how this event came to be. Because I had a blast. Even if I'm not invited to play next year, I just want to come and be like the host of the show.
No, it's definitely a very social event. It was born out of, we used to do kind of this bye-bye Bigs Cup. So one of the pros at Country Club of Birmingham, Chris Biggins, he would go out to Park City for about 4 months out of the year, and he would go train for the Paralympics. So he has cerebral palsy and would go out there, try and make the ski team. So we would always do a big send off for him and say, we'll go play Horse Creek, we'll go play golf somewhere. And, it just kind of snowballed into, well, let's play 27. Let's, get some other guys to come. It was mainly, 6, 7, 8 of us from Birmingham, but, it just grew from there. And, the inspiration for the name actually came from, a pro that played on tour for a little while, was taking lessons at Country Club of Birmingham. And, he was sponsored by Polo, had some of the, 6-inch ponies on some polos. And he
Okay.
said, hey, I've got, you know, a dozen, 24 of these, I haven't worn these. These I've worn like once. You can have them. So I gave them out to a few guys. I kept a few, and it was just such an obnoxious logo. I mean, it's made for TV. It's massive.
Right.
And, I took it, wore it a few times, and people started calling me Big Pony. And it just kind of started this trend of now it's the Big Pony. And then, like you saw, it ended up being where one of the guys does odds for it. I mean, he creates a whole book. He's the casino. He's the guy who has odds on everybody. He does research. He dives, way into tournament scores from 10 years ago. And that's not a joke. I mean, he is there on
That's
his
amazing.
computer just going absolutely nuts about it. And it's really cool to see, what it's become after, 7, 8 years now.
So, and how I was somewhat embarrassed that I had never even heard of Horse Creek when Garrett mentioned it to me, and I was like, because I'm born and raised here, went to Auburn, then moved back to Birmingham, so I like to think that I have a good idea about all of the golf courses within we'll call it a 200-mile radius of Birmingham. And I was like,
Right.
Horse Creek, where is Horse Creek? What is Horse Creek? And I had no clue what to expect. I have now since been there again. I've taken my dad and brothers because I fell in love with the place.
It's
But
so cool.
yeah, in your words, I would love to hear you describe, because you have certainly been around that track many more times than I have. I would love for you to tell the listeners what an experience is like at Horse Creek.
I would say Horse Creek it's a municipal course that is run by the city. I think it's the city of Dora, Alabama. And you show up, it's your very typical muni style, very low key. You don't think anything's going to be crazy. Driving range is, what it is. And then you get on the golf course and you say, wow, this place is really cool. And you just go, I mean, it's got hills, it's got undulation, it's got, some pretty good greens, especially that time of year when we go play. Normally,
Right.
October, November, they're firm, they're pretty fast. We've actually asked the super a few times, be like, hey, we're coming out Monday. Can you tuck the pens? And that year was brutal. I mean, he put them in some ridiculous spots.
Oh, so he did it.
He did. Yeah, we were there maybe Saturday, Sunday, maybe Friday before, whatever it was. And, for a practice round. And, we ended up going and just ended up running into the guy. And one of the guys I worked with, Bruns, he said, hey, could you, tuck it, maybe double roll them, whatever. And he was like, oh, we'll make it hard. We'll make it hard. And he sure as hell made it hard. It was the toughest I've ever seen it set up, but even on a regular day, I mean, it's got some teeth.
Yeah, and so this is going to be a stretch, and you're probably going to chuckle when I say it, but it reminded I don't even know if I can get it out without laughing. It reminded me of Kapalua.
Okay.
Because of the drives from green to tee. Like, you cannot walk Horse Creek.
Oh no, you can't walk.
And you cannot walk Kapalua. I mean, the pros obviously do it, but whatever.
Right.
But all the changes in elevation and you like, it is a gym. Like my first loop around it, I'm like, oh my gosh, if we just had unlimited resources, this could be the best golf course in the state of Alabama, maybe in the Southeast.
100%. I think, if you could throw a little bit more money at it, because I'm sure the city, they don't want to do that, but it's an awesome layout. It's challenging. It's got some easy holes. It's got, just a great variety.
Yeah, I loved it. So this is what was the one that I played in? That was year 7 or 8, you said?
Somewhere in there. I'm not entirely sure, but we've been doing it for a while and we've kept a pretty good core group. I would say probably 8 of us have played in 90% of them.
Okay.
But, we've had some other guys come and go, whether they, are working in Alabama and then they move out, somewhere else. But no, it's been really cool to see the evolution of it. And, it's been as big as 24 players and,
Okay.
as small as, I guess in the beginning, 7 or 8. So,
Okay. Well, my first loop, I was paired with Kevin Quinn, who's the head professional head of golf at Vestavia Country Club, and we've since hit it off. Stay in touch. We're texting now during the weeks, and it's crazy, like you said early on in tonight's episode about how golf just brings people together. Has Horse Creek gotten to where they just know that in November the Big Pony is happening? Like, is it something that's just on their calendar every year?
well, it's not on their calendar, but when we call to get tee times, they always know what's going on.
Okay.
We've shown up, like you saw, with the big plotter paper, and we've had, scoreboards made, and, the pro there has helped us hang them on the windows before. And, when we call and we say, hey, we need 16 cheeseburgers, they know the drill.
Right.
It's always, I'm sure they always look forward to it, but they also know, hey, this could be kind of a crazy day. You never know.
They look forward to it, but they're also glad when they see our taillights leaving the property, probably.
Exactly.
And we cannot skip over that flat top. Because I was just kind of told you'll just eat what's ordered for you. So as soon
Right.
as you make the turn, grab a burger, and that was one of the best burgers I've had at
Oh
a
my
golf
God.
course. It's incredible. So
Yeah.
for anybody in Birmingham, if you have not been to Horse Creek, get to Horse Creek. Like it is a lot of fun. It can be as challenging as you want it to be. And like Brewster said, the greens, the day we played, they were probably rolling what, 11 and a half or 12,
Yeah.
and they're
I
about
mean,
the size of a dish plate.
oh, yeah, they're fast and, it's not expensive to play. I think if you put that course anywhere closer to Birmingham, it's, $125, $150 round.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right. I would definitely agree with that. I don't know what I need to do to create an influx of cash into Dora that is earmarked for Horse Creek, but that's like on my list of like goals as I continue to get older of like, how do we make Horse Creek the gym that it deserves to be?
No, it's unreal. Go check it out if you haven't.
So in a rare turn of events, I actually reached out to a few of our friends that we have in common because I was like, hey, I'm having Brewster on the show tonight. What are some things I should ask him? And I got a few softballs, and so we'll start there. But I was told to ask you about Ireland.
Yeah. So we recently, a friend of mine, Garrett, and I went over to Ireland. It was the best golf trip I've ever been on, hands
Wow.
down. And I've been lucky to be on some other cool trips, but I think this was bar none. I mean, this was, the people, the golf, just the whole experience was, as they say over there, it was class. And a friend of mine from Liberty National, he used to be up there and now he's one of the assistants at Port Marnock, which is a course right outside of Dublin. That was our first stop on the trip, and got to stay with him and his wife for a few nights there in Dublin. But he hooked that one up, hooked up another, right there at County Louth, which is, I don't know, half an hour to an hour north of Dublin. And then, we had 2 other golf courses lined up on Saturday, Sunday, whatever it was, later in the trip. But we had 2 days that were kind of in flux. And, I actually went to go see a friend of mine who's also now a customer, but he found out we were going to Ireland and said, hey, let me make a phone call. I said, what are you doing? He said, are you playing Portrush. And I said, no, we're not playing up there. We were just going to do maybe a Muni day, go see what Ireland had to offer. Within 30 minutes, he had us 2 tee times on both golf courses. We played with a pro in Ireland that I've gotten to be really good friends with. He drove up, took us out for both rounds, and then we actually played with a member at Portrush. We were second or third group off, and it was unreal. I mean, it was so cool to have that experience the night before being in downtown Portrush, but the little bitty town there, and then staying at a hotel 300 yards from the golf course. So we just got out of bed, went right there, grabbed something to eat. No range balls, just let's go. And we were dew sweeping that day. That was a ton of fun.
That's awesome. So that had to be the highlight of the trip, right?
Yeah, I think between that and another course we got to play towards the end. So we did those 2, and then we played Enniscrone, which is kind of northwest Ireland. Stayed in Galway the next night, then drove down to Trump, Doonbeg, which I think was probably the best golf course of the whole trip.
Really? Even more than Portrush?
I think so. Obviously, you have the views there at Portrush, the history. And Doonbeg is, this old course that Trump came in, kind of pumped some money into, is at least what our caddy was telling us. And, really built it up to be what it is now. But you hear the ocean on every single shot.
Wow.
Which is unreal. I mean, you're 800,000 yards inland, but you're still hearing the crash of the waves. And, it's just stunning views the entire time. My screensaver is a par 3 there that I think's better than 7 at Pebble. I mean, it's really cool.
That's awesome. Maybe it's Trump that we need to get to pump some money into Horse Creek.
That'd be one way to do it.
Trump Horse Creek.
Exactly. Maybe you'd put its big name there and make it really huge. So
so it was Garrett that he was like, you got to ask him about Ireland. And then I said, well, yeah, I appreciate that you're taking me seriously and asking what questions I should ask Brewster about, or that I should ask him. And he said, and I said, no, but I said, like, tell me some things I should really ask him about. And I understand that there was a point in time that both you and Garrett were into jujitsu. And then that there was a PGA sectional event down in Florida. Yeah. Can you tell me about that experience?
Yeah, so that was a unique trip. That was I forget what event it was, but it was down at Pensacola Country Club. We go down there with 6 of us, give or take. We got a big car going down, 2 different cars. We're meeting, but we get this Airbnb, and we have a few cocktails the night before, have a little fun, and we get back into the Airbnb, and we're sitting there and whatever, we're putting around doing this sort of thing. And then Garrett's like, oh, well, I just learned this jujitsu move. And I was like, oh yeah, like show me. So he gets down and kind of shows me what it is. And I was like, oh, like from here, do I just slam? And end up slamming him into this end table, whatever it is. We poke a hole in the wall. I'm limping off to the side. I'm bleeding. And, it's this whole ordeal. And we're sitting there the next morning, and I'm like, shit. We have this hole in the wall of an Airbnb. Logston booked it. We were talking about it 3-4 days ago when we were down at the PGA show, because he still brings it up. He's like, dude, my Airbnb rating shit because
of that.
And I'm like, well, was it my fault? Was it Garrett's? I don't know. But, we end up doing that. I go to Home Depot the next morning. I take a piece of the drywall. I'm trying to match it, like all this stuff. And we try to fix it, we patch it, we do all this stuff. And this is all before we tee off at, say 10 o'clock in the morning, and get to the golf course. I can hardly swing. Like, I'm making 3/4 swings. And I'm like, this is not going to be good. I woke up that morning, there's blood in the sheets. And I'm like, dude, my back is just killing. So I'm sitting here making half swings, like can barely, make a golf move at it. And I'm like, I could shoot 100 today. I have no idea. Well, we end up getting to, I don't know, 13, 14. I think I'm 3 under, give or take. And
Okay.
just, I mean, 3/4 swing. And I don't know why I ever swing full if, that's working for
Right.
me.
Maybe that's the trick.
Right. Maybe that's it. But, end up getting down in this hole, like in this little ravine. And I look at the guy I'm playing with and I say, God, I don't know if I should hit it. And he's like, I'm not supposed to tell you, but I wouldn't fucking hit that. And, I'm like, no, dude, I can get this out. Take a lob wedge, open it up, straight into the bank. I'm like, oh, well, that's dead. So I end up doubling the hole. I think make a bogey or two coming in, shoot one over. But I was pretty happy with that. Granted, I had a hole in my back and was trying to fix drywall, 3 hours before we teed off. So
Right.
I was pretty happy with that, but that was definitely a trip that I don't think any of us are going to forget.
That's what's so great about those golf trips. Like I was talking to a guy today about playing in basically hurricane conditions at Landman this past summer.
Yeah.
And there's all those weird things that happen along the way of golf trips. And I was also talking to someone today about how great a minivan is on a golf trip.
Oh, yeah.
Because we
You
ended
get
up
everybody together.
right. Yeah. And the minivan, like a Chrysler Pacifica, like the best. Like you can't have a better vehicle on a golf trip than a minivan. I was also supposed to ask you if Brant ever replaced your Ventus Red shaft.
Ooh, that was a big pony story. So Biggs and I are playing this singles match, and normally it's me against the tennis pro at Country Club.
Whoa.
Biggs. And Eric, who makes the book and kind of helps with pairings, said, you sure you want to play Biggs? I said, hell yeah, I want to play Biggs. Let's do it. So, at this point in the day, we've had our fun, and the golf isn't the best at this point.
Right.
And I think I lose 4 and 3. Well, on the last hole, I'm getting up. Maybe it was less than that because it was a par 5 on the front, which is 7. I think it's 7. And I get up, try and snap hook this 3-wood, end up, not doing it, end up blocking it or whatever happens. And I take it and I just toss it like this because I'm mad. I'm like
you're just like casting a fishing rod.
right. Yeah. Not, not
You're not
over the
hurling it.
knee, not violent.
Not the Rory tomahawk into the lake.
Right. No, exactly. Not that style, but end up throwing it and it just lands the wrong way and snap right in half. So there's a picture that I think might, be included at my funeral, whenever that is, but just of me with the 2 parts of the shaft, just like this, just, holding it in my Big Pony shirt with the logo, the tour logo and all this. Yeah, that was quite the match. It wasn't very much of a match.
That's awesome. Well, I certainly appreciate Garrett giving me some things to ask you about. It was fun reading. He sent me a few others that I have chosen are better left unsaid. I might text you about those after we're done recording to let you know what he told me about. So your world's changed a little bit in the last 7 or 8 months. In the last 12 months, what's a favorite new course that you have played? New to you?
Oh, I mean, the Ireland trip was bar none. I think, those golf courses speak for themselves.
Yeah.
And I would say a couple I got to play out west. I got to do some really cool ones. I got to do LACC. I got to do Rev, but those are well known. Not that these other two aren't well known, but the Golf Club of Montecito,
Okay.
really cool. Really cool. It's a very traditional, it's been restored. I can't remember who the architect is there right now, but it is really good. I got to play there, and then I played, what was another one out there? San Luis Obispo Country Club, really cool. Just in the mountains. It's an old, farm that they turned into a golf course, but really cool golf course there. I'd probably say those two are the
Okay.
standout two, the past year.
So on number 10 at Riviera, did you lay up or go for it?
So 10 was actually my first hole. We
Okay.
get out there, a friend of mine's a
Oh,
member.
gosh.
Yeah, first hole, we hit like 10 range balls, and he's like, "You ready to go?" I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "What'd you do earlier?" He was like, "Oh, I played." It's like, "Wait, so you're going for 36?" He was like, "I don't know how many we'll play. We might play 9, we might play 18." So get up, hit driver. He said, "What tees do you want to play from?" I said, "Dude, I'm tipping this thing out. I'm going as far back as I can." And he said, "I'm not going to go, that far back. I'm going to play it up a little." So I hit driver and end up just in that little bunker short left, but didn't get it up and down. Good little par to start. And that green is just so narrow. I
Yeah.
had no idea. Seeing it on TV just does not do it justice.
Which, and if you had said you had gotten up and down, I was gonna be, well, that was pretty impressive because not even the pros most of the time get it up and down, especially because of that green and with
Oh,
how fast it is. It's narrow and the way it runs, how it's elongated against the fairway, or I guess in correlation to the fairway, I it looks impossible to hit. I don't know how how you
yeah.
can make par on that hole, but good for you.
No, it
Are
was.
are you a dew sweeper or do you prefer like a sunset golden hour? What's your go-to time to tee it up?
I kind of like the afternoon. I like getting everything done, not thinking about anything else and just going out at, you know, an hour before sunset and playing as
Yeah.
many holes as you can.
Yeah.
I just
I'm
think I don't know, that's me. What about you?
I'm the same way. I love there is nothing better to me than a sunset while you're on a golf course, especially when it's just like right on the horizon and you've got a good group with you, may or may not have your shoes on. Like that's hard to beat.
Or at
Um,
Sweetens, you might not have a shirt on.
that's true. That's true too. But yeah, I think that's my favorite. I'm not a morning person either. So it behooves me to be playing later in the afternoon.
Right.
If you could put together a dream foursome, alive or dead, what would that look like for you?
I think I'd really say there's two answers here. I would go, with family first and
Okay.
then, another group. But I would say, my grandfather who's still alive, he can't play as much anymore just because of health. I'd say him, my uncle, and I think it's my great great grandfather. I have his old golf clubs
That's
and
cool.
they're so cool. I mean, you've got the hickory shafts, the true irons. I mean, it's really cool. And obviously I didn't know him, but I think that would be really cool just to see that technology and see, if he played with today's technology, what it would do. If he would, just be dumbfounded and hitting it so far, or if, it'd be
Right.
about the same.
Have you played
But
with them?
no,
No, I
God,
mean, have you played with those clubs?
no, I haven't played with him.
Okay.
I need to. I'm afraid of breaking them. I mean,
Right.
it's crazy. Just the hickory. I feel like I take a divot, I dig a little too much, and it snaps in half. And I definitely don't want to do that.
Right.
But
No, totally understand that. But I had to ask the question because I was like, man, because I like not too long ago there was a guy out on the West Coast who was just cleaning out his shed of clubs, and I got a set of like Tommy Armours from I think they're 1980.
Yeah.
And just to get them, I'm like, and it's like a half set, but I'm like, heck yeah, let's put those in the bag at some point. And
Oh yeah.
just to mess around with them. I mean, I'm probably not going to hit them anywhere, but it'll be fun.
Right. No, and I've hit some of the old clubs, and one of the members at Shoal, he lived right there. Let's see, off number 8, that par 3, and his house was memorabilia just everywhere. Anybody
Okay.
and everybody he had a picture with, he had something. Well, he would go out there and hit range balls every day. I don't think I ever saw him play the golf course once. But he, had an expensive range membership, basically.
Right.
And he would come out there with those clubs, and, I hit some of them, and it's just the same way. I felt afraid to take a divot because,
Yeah.
I just didn't want to break it. But I'm sure it's just as strong, if not stronger, than, what we have today.
Yeah. Okay. So the first foursome was family. Who would be your other foursome?
I would have to go kind of like a 2K. I don't know if you ever did the 3-on-3 blacktop where you could choose like the year that MJ and all
Yeah.
that. I'd say, prime Tiger, 2000s, and the same for Jack and Arnie. I would say,
Oh,
that
yeah.
would be really cool just to have those 3 in their prime together, and the conversation would be very interesting.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
definitely would. It definitely would. Last question. Do you or do you not hit it off the deck? And if so, why or why not?
I do hit it off the deck. So I actually have a mini driver too. So I have the driver and the mini
Everybody
driver.
does. I'm the only person that doesn't have a mini driver.
You got to get a mini driver, dude. It is game changer. One of the guys, we were out playing Chambers in this TaylorMade event, and the day before he said, "Try this thing," and I tried it and fell in love. I mean, I've had it in the bag since, and I hit that off the deck. I hit that off the tee, but I definitely hit driver off the deck too.
I
So
love that.
no, it's
Well, Mr.
super.
Brewster, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for shedding all the light I needed on Big Pony, the event that I played in, and was fortunate enough to meet you and a handful of other great guys from around the Birmingham area. But it was also great just to hear your story, and I wish all the success in the world to you and Straight Down, and look forward to teeing it up with you again, hopefully sometime soon.
Definitely. Let's do it. Thanks for having me on, and always a pleasure to hang out.
Yeah, thank you. For Mr. Brewster, I'm Josh Decker, and this has been another episode of Off the Deck.